Hey everyone, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and today we're putting together our Chic treat box. So this one's a little involved because we do have some round elements, but not going to be difficult at all. You should already have all of your stuff cut out and pre-folded, just like I do. We're going to begin by putting this together. It's just a little cube, and well, it's simply a little piece that is going to act as a support. Okay, so I've got everything folded. We're going to put glue on this little tab here to make this all one continuous piece. Go ahead and spread that glue out on that tab. Now this is the time to get all of your mistakes out of the way. This thing is actually going to be hidden. Okay, I'm taking this piece with the tab and just laying it flat and bringing the other end over and laying it right on top of that tab. This one doesn't have to be perfect, but like I said, let's get the jitters out right now and make sure that our glue is flowing nicely. And essentially this is a little practice piece. Okay, so now I'm going to take and put glue on these 3 tabs here. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, but a good opportunity to kind of get into the groove. It's always a good day when you're crafting and hanging out with me. Okay, so we're going to take this little lid and close it up, just match it up with the side opposite of the side that is already hinged at. Okay. Now you'll notice that on this piece here, we have a little T on 2 sides, and that just means top, okay? Because it's not perfectly cubed. It is a little bit taller than it is wide, and that's gonna come into play in a little bit here. Okay, so we got that in place. We're gonna close it up down here. Just get your glue on these 3 tabs, just like we did a moment ago. And spread that glue out. Again, this is not even going to be visible to anybody once we're all done with it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but all right, close it up. And there's our little cube. Wouldn't it be great if everything was this simple? But then I don't think it would be as fun. Okay, so we've got, this is essentially a little support piece. And I'll show you where that goes in just a moment. Next thing that we're going to work on is the little base. Okay, and I already have everything pre-folded. This is actually the top of the base. This is going to be the bottom once we put the bottom on right here. Okay, so I've got everything folded, and this first fold is going to be straight. Okay, so here's the flat surface, and it's going to go 90 degrees down, and then it's going to curve out. Okay, so it's going to look like that. So to get started here, we're going to start with the little triangular tab right at the top here, and just put a little dot of glue on there. Get that glue all the way out to the very edges. I need some paper here. Again, let's line that up with the neighboring piece, nice and straight. Okay, should be a 90-degree angle right here, just like that. Okay, moving on to the next one. We're going to go work our way around here and do all of these. Now this is where the process gets a little tedious because we're just working with tiny little tabs. One thing that you can do to save time is make sure that you're not overdoing it on the glue. The more glue that you put on these pieces, the longer you're going to be sitting around waiting for it to dry. It should literally partially, if not completely, set in just a few seconds. Okay. So it does help to kind of thin the glue out and work it into the paper by just kind of dabbing it with your finger. And then take the neighboring piece, line it up nice and straight, and hold. Okay, so you can see what we're forming here, how it's a nice 90 degrees right here. And the rest of it will have a little bit of curve to it. All right, I'm going to keep on cruising here. And here we go. So Again, it's going to be a little repetitive. That's okay. I'll fill in here with a little story that actually is fitting, because chicks are symbolic. Well, I guess any baby is, and no, I'm not having a baby. All right, so the last one here, maybe a little difficult to get your glue nozzle in there, so just bend it back up against itself there. Okay, and just kind of dab that with your finger a little bit. Line that up nicely, and press and hold until it sets. So there you can see what we've got forming here. And once that's all in place, now we're going to go down the row here with these little tabs, and we're going to start forming the round portion of the base. Okay, just like that. All right, so I think, for the sake of time, that we can actually apply our glue to all 4 of these, because they're so small. Get your glue on there, work that glue out to the edges and thin it out, just like that. Get that glue off your finger and connect it. Make sure that you're lining it up as accurately as you can, and just give it a quick press. As long as you have just a tiny amount of glue on there, just enough to hold it, it should not take long at all for it to bond. So there you can see how that looks from that angle and that angle, just like that. Very simple. So absolutely, let's go all 4 tabs, thin that glue out. You can use a little brush or a scrap piece of paper if you don't want to use your finger. Totally fine. And we're going to repeat this process all the way around until we get this all closed up. So my little story here is that, well, today, and probably yesterday, I should have already been filming the trailer and getting this project ready for release, but I had to go to the dentist. I've had well, been having some weird issues, and ended up going to a sleep center for a sleep study. Turns out I had some apnea, even though I eat healthy and yada yada. Okay, so again, those 4 tabs, and you want to make sure that you're getting these lined up with little score marks there. Just find that natural angle that these want to sit at. So anyway, they did an x-ray, they made me a mouthpiece, and my apnea or snoring is gone completely, which is amazing. While they did that, they did an x-ray of my entire face and my teeth and all that, and they found this one tooth that, well, there was something remarkable about it. And not remarkable like, you know, it's a great pool player or a great bowler. It was, the x-ray showed sinus-related stuff right by that tooth, and it turns out that it was really infected, and it was basically dead. So I had to get it extracted, and I believe this is just day 1, but I'm already feeling like $1,000,000. Can breathe through my nose, not having any weird shortness of breath symptoms, and I kind of feel like I was reborn, just like this little chick. So anyway, I appreciate your guys' patience and support. I have a feeling that I'm going to have a crazy amount of energy going forward, so look out for that. Okay, so we're nearing the end here. We've got 4 more tabs. Process is exactly the same, nothing different yet. So get your glue on those 4 tabs. And actually the last part of this is going to be pretty much the same as the rest of these, with the exception that we're going to be closing this up. So make sure that these tabs here are going in and they're not sticking out. And then just get these nice and aligned, just as we did the last 5 times. or 4 times. Line them up. You can see how quickly this is going because I'm not using a lot of glue. And when I hit it with my finger like that, I'm kind of making it a little tacky because I'm pushing it into the paper fibers, so they're absorbing there, but they're still wet, but it's nice and tacky, so it's really grabbing that paper and just drying very quickly. So I'm not spending a ton of time on this. Okay, so now there's the last section that we need to glue together, and we'll put our glue on those 4 tabs just like we did the last 5 times. And I'm going to hit that with my finger, thin it out, make it tacky. And I'm going to do it from this angle so I can see the top of it. Get that nice and lined up just like we did the last 5 times. Make sure you're getting it at the correct angle. And voila. Okay. So there's our beautiful base, nice dimensional round base. Now we're going to add a little panel to this to make it look really round because it is still kind of jagged at this point. All right, so now, remember this guy? This guy here, we're going to glue inside here. It's going to help support whatever it is we decide to put into the little contraption, or the little, well, I guess it's an eggshell. Yeah. Now, you'll notice here the letter T. We want the letter T to be standing up. We don't want it up here. We want it to be standing up. This is the surface that everything is going to rest on eventually. Okay, so the T needs to be standing up. It need not be here or here. It needs to be standing up so you can actually read it like the letter T. We're going to glue this inside of this little base. So just throw a little bit of glue on the bottom here. My T is here and here. And we'll pop that right in the center. Okay. And then you can take these and fold these in. And this piece here, we're going to glue this piece to just one of these sections to anchor it. Okay, so pick one, doesn't matter which one. Get your glue on this guy here and spread that glue out to the very edge, just like that. And line that up nicely, nice and centered, nice and flush up against the edge there. And then we can actually put this down on our surface and press down. That little block inside should be pretty much bonded already. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And now we're going to put glue on the remaining 5 tabs, and we're going to close this up. Okay, so go ahead and get your glue on these. This is going to be the bottom. So if you still have some craft jitters here, get them out now. If you make a little mistake here, it's not the end of the world. No one's going to be staring at the bottom of this. Let's spread that glue out to the very edges, gently. There we go. And this one needs a little more. There we go. Okay, so go ahead and close this up. You want to focus on getting it aligned with this side here, opposite of the side that it's already anchored to. So get that nice and centered. And then you can kind of, if you need to, kind of nudge some of these walls in to line up with this little lid. That's fine. And just press and hold that. Just kind of work your finger around the perimeter, making sure that this little lid is making good contact with the very, very edges of each of these pieces, or each of these segments, sections, whatever you want to call them. And just hold that for just a moment. Okay. There we go. And there it is. Okay, so our base is now dimensional. And let me see here. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so next up are these little panels. Okay, these panels are going to get glued to these sections here. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom and then fold them over. Now, because it's such a thin little piece here, we may want to kind of train this a little bit And I think the best way to do this is maybe just to take it and kind of wrap it around a dowel to give it a little bit of a curve so that it more easily and more naturally just kind of fits that shape. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take this and starting anywhere. Actually, probably start at the bottom since it's a little bit wider and just wrap it around. You don't need to start at the very base. And you don't really have to go all the way to the top, but kind of like that so that it's curved. And try to be consistent with each one. Just breaking up the fibers in the paper a little bit so that we don't have to struggle and fight with this thing when we try to glue it to the actual structure. Okay. Now I would work with a thicker dowel. You don't want to go too thin because it's going to curve it too much and you may actually end up creasing it, which you don't want to do. Okay, so kind of like that. All right, so now I think probably want to start, I'm going to start at the top here. I'm going to get it glued down to this top here because we're actually going to put a little bit of, well, there's going to be a little bit of trim going around the bottom. So if we don't get it perfectly aligned at the bottom, we can always rely on the trim to get us there. And I think the best thing to do here is to put glue at the top section, like so, and spread that glue out all the way to the very edge. And then also, let's just get the bottom section as well. I don't think you really need to put glue on the middle of it because, you know, it'll hold. Okay, so line that up right at that angle, right at that little little area where the structure goes up at that 90-degree angle, and just line that up, get it nice and centered, and then also make sure that it's nice and flush at the very base, and continue to apply pressure, making sure that it's not going anywhere. There's going to be a little bit of resistance on this because it's such a small piece. Okay, so just keep holding until everything sets nicely, and that's that. Pretty simple. Okay, that's what it's going to look like. So now we can move on to the next one. Same thing, just a little bit of glue at the top and a little bit of glue at the bottom, and we'll get that applied to the next section here. Make sure you spread that glue out to the very edges so that you don't get anything peeling back. And start at the top, centered nicely, and bring it down to the bottom. Okay, so we've got two in place. Moving on to the next. And just take your time with this, especially with these panels, because of that curvature. You don't want to rush it. But again, the most important thing is to get that glue out to the very, very edge here. So everything sits nice and flush. Okay. So starting up here at that little part where it meets at the 90-degree angle, press that down, make sure it's got a good hold. You can kind of keep one finger on it while you use the rest of your fingers to press that down into place. And again, if it doesn't completely hit the very bottom, which it should, again, we're gonna take and we got a little bit of trim that we're gonna put around this to kind of clean it up. But mine's looking great. It's looking really good, actually. Okay. Take your time, don't rush. Make sure that everything's sticking and holding nicely before you move on. So curious, what do you guys do for Easter? Be curious to know what your family traditions are. So if you have a moment, and you're watching this on YouTube, pop into the comments, leave a comment, let me know what your traditions are. Maybe it's something that we can adapt, especially if you got some kids involved. Okay, so pushing it up against this part where it starts to go vertical, holding that in place with one finger while I use the rest of my fingers to bring down the rest of this. Make sure that's making nice solid contact all the way there. Should go pretty much flush with the bottom there. Our engineering, thanks to our wonderful Diana, is so precise. I'm really proud of the work that they do. Okay, moving on here to the next one. There we go. And there we go. Top and bottom. So anyway, it's been quite the ride with just some random health related stuff. And I mean, I work out every day. I try to eat organic, gluten-free, cook all the time, try not to eat out too much. When I do, pick really good choices. Occasionally, you know, I'll eat some not so good stuff, and yeah, but you know, as hard as I was trying, it just still couldn't, just felt like this fog over me. And knock on wood, let's hope that this infection was the cause of all that. Because I know I'm getting older, but boy, that was feeling like I was much older than I am. Okay, all right, last one here. And let's get the glue on the top and bottom. Spread that out. Okay. And there we go. Get that in place, press that down. Use your other fingers to push the rest of it into place. And just hold for a moment. Yeah, I think you can, on camera B here, you can see the prototype for the Chic. Not using the correct colors, that's why it's just a prototype, but it's gonna look really cute. Okay, so there's that. And then we just have to put the little trim around the very base. And then I've got some bling on a roll here. And I'm gonna hot glue just one strand of this. You can cut this to whatever width you want. We'll do one little strand around there. I'll do that later on. Don't want to bore you with that. Now, as far as the little trim goes, you'll notice that there's pieces like this. There's there's a section of 3 here and a section of 3 here, as well as here and here. Now, this is obviously way too big. This is going to be used for the top part of the egg, so we can put these to the side for now. But we're going to need these guys. The little scallops are going to be pointing up with the flat edge up against the bottom, and that's going to go on like this. Okay. Now we're going to want to start with the piece that has the little tabs at the end. There's 2 tiny little tabs. This one does not have those tabs. We'll do that one second, but we're going to start with this one. And we're going to begin by putting glue on this middle section here. Okay, so let's get our glue on this middle section. And go easy on the glue, you don't need a ton. And use the little folds here to your advantage. And pop that into place. Doesn't matter which side you put it on. Just like that. Make sure, use your fingers here at the bottom to kind of feel and make sure that everything is sitting nice and flush. And hold that into place for just a moment. Let it set. And there you go. You can see how nice that looks. Okay, now we're going to finish this side off, putting glue on this section. And then you can put glue on this little tab here. Just fold that over, again making sure that this is nice and flush with the bottom. Just like that. And then you can fold this tab over as well onto the next section there. And that tab is simply to, once we get this other piece on, in case there is a little gap, it'll make it look nice and seamless and continuous. So you won't see any of this paper poking through in that section. Okay, so moving on here to the last section on this piece. Don't forget to put a little bit of glue on that little tab and fold that over. nice and flush with the bottom, using my thumb here, just to kind of feel and make sure that it is nice and flush. Obviously, it doesn't hurt to look at it visually. And then take that tab and fold it over as well. Again, making sure that that is nice and flush. Okay, that's looking great. It's amazing what you can make with paper, huh? Okay, now we'll take this piece, and just like we did with the first one, we're going to start with the center. Get your glue on this section here. And we want to put it on the center one. So there's one missing here, one missing here. You want to put it here. You don't want to put it here because then you'll have these overlapping. So make sure you grab it and pop it on the center one there. And push that into place. Just like that. And while we're holding that down, you can take this section, add your glue all the way to the very end. Make sure you get that glue to the very, very tip there. There we go. And then bring this down, get it nice and aligned with that tab. Should go on top of that tab, while also making sure that it is nice and flush with the bottom. And there we have it. Now while we hold that down, you can peel this back and begin applying your glue here. All the way to the very end. And fold that over onto that section there. That's it. Okay. Very cool. Yep. So aside from the little bling on a roll, our base is done. Okay, what a fun little exercise. And that thing is nice and sturdy. It's going to hold our Chic very sturdily. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to work on is the actual container for the base, and is made up of these two segments here. I've already pre-folded everything, as should you. And kind of like we did with the base, we're going to begin putting this together by simply gluing these tabs to their neighbors. Okay, so you can see this tab here. It's going to go here, so on and so forth until we complete the full circle. Now, here you'll notice that there's this tiny little tab. You want to fold this. I'm not even going to worry about putting glue on it. It's just kind of there to make it, well, if there was going to be a light in here, it would prevent light from going through. It just kind of prevents it from looking like there's a gap there, but I wouldn't even waste my time trying to put any glue on it. It is not going to help structurally, so you can skip it. So what I'm going to do, I think we could probably pull this off, just like we did with the base. I'm going to put glue on these 3 tabs. And since it's only 3, if it was a bunch of tabs, maybe like 6 or 10, which we've done before, I would probably not try to do all of them at the same time. But since it's only 3, I think it's fine. So tuck that behind the neighboring section, line it up, and press down to get that all nice and glued into place. There we go. Okay, that's simple. Okay, and you can see how that tab looks like, it's almost looks like it's glued down, but I wouldn't even mess with it. Really not necessary. Okay, moving on to the next section here. And if the 3 tab thing's not working for you, just do one at a time. I'll do one at a time here this time. Okay, I think it is easier doing all 3 at once. Okay, so get that lined up. I just have glue on that 1 tab. Line it up, press and hold, just like that. Okay, now if you are doing 1 tab at a time, it may help to move this section out of the way, which you can do since there's a fold there, and apply your glue to the next tab. There we go. Then you can fold it back over and just press that into place and hold. And then again, you can move this out of the way. Apply glue to the remaining tab. Kind of dab that a bit And there we go. Last one. Just like that. Okay, so either way is okay. But again, I think because it's only 3 tabs, it's absolutely feasible to do them all in one fell swoop. Okay, so there we have that. Now, I'm going to take and do the same thing on this side, and we'll create the 2 halves, then we'll join them together. Okay, so I'm going to do this 3 at a time, just like I did the first time. And I'm just kind of dotting some glue on there. And I'll take it and thin it out with my finger. There we go. Wiping it off on some paper. Tuck that behind. Get it lined up with the neighbor. And hold it in whatever position works best for you. My right hand is my dominant hand, so I do like to kind of use that to align things and apply the pressure for the glue to stick, and just kind of use my left hand as support. Okay, but whatever feels most comfortable for you is fine. All right, we'll move on over here to the last section and get glue on our 3 tabs. Get that glue nice and thinned out. Tuck it in there. And get that nice and aligned. Press and hold. Again, my glue is nice and thin, nice and tacky, so it should not take long at all. There we go. And this one may be, I was going to say it might have already dried out, but there we go. Okay. All right, so you can see what's happening here. There's something happening here. It may seem like it's not clear. Now we're going to join this all together, and I'm going to begin by actually joining the bottom section together first, just because I think that will set the tone for the rest of it. As long as we get this nice and lined up, the rest of it will line up nicely as well. So go ahead and put some glue on the bottommost tab on one of the sections here. Nice little triangular tab. And we'll grab the other end, or the other half, line that up. Make sure you got it nice and straight, and press and hold. Let that sit for a second. That's going to have to hold nice and tight before we start jostling this thing around and getting the rest of it glued into place. Okay, so be patient. And now, okay, now we've got 4 tabs here, because that one tab is no longer that little skinny one. But I think I can handle 4 at a time. If you cannot, just do 1 at a time. But I'm going to do all 4, thin that out, and just kind of move, not quickly, just efficiently. There we go. Okay, tuck those tabs behind. There we go. And just like we did the first few times when we were building each segment, get it lined up and a quick press. Once you've got it lined up, just give it a quick press and then just move your way up. Make sure you've got it nice and accurately aligned. It's a little weird just because all these tabs and the shape, and just get your finger in there however you need to make it happen. And there we go. Okay, so that half is now joined together. And you guessed it, we're going to go over here and close it up. Okay, so let's start with the bottom again and work our way up. I'm going to do the bottom one first. I'll focus on making sure that I get that nice and accurately aligned. That will, again, set the tone for the rest of it. And it'll anchor it in place so that you can kind of jostle this around and put the finishing touches on it. Okay. Coming along here. Now you're probably gonna have to take and fold these tabs in from the inside to apply your glue. You can actually put this down on your surface and really give these a press so that they sit nice and flat for you. So that's easier to get your glue on these tabs. You can see that, yeah, sure. There we go. And I'm not going to worry too much about dabbing these. I can hold these a little bit longer, get them lined up. We're doing absolutely nothing different here, with the exception that this is just an end piece, and we have a few more tabs that we need to join. But that's about it. Now you see here, because I didn't press down and dab the glue and make it tacky, it has a tendency to slide around a lot more. So you got to be a little more careful with your alignment, and then once you have it aligned, you need to be a little more patient and make sure that it in fact sets before you let it go. Otherwise it may kind of slide out of place a little bit and lose its alignment. Well, there you have it. Okay, so that's that. We'll give that a few moments to really set. And you can see these tabs here. Anytime you see tabs, you know that we're going to be eventually gluing something to them. Okay, so this is the little container for our egg, or our chick, I should say. This is going to go on top like this. We'll do that in a minute. But we just need to put the bottom on this, and this is going to help it kind of keep its shape a lot better. So you do have two of these. They're both pretty much the same size, I think. Let me see here. There are no other indicators on here. Yep, they are exactly the same size. So we're going to pick one of these tabs, doesn't matter which one, since it's a symmetrical piece. And we're going to glue this little six-sided shape to one of these tabs to get it anchored. You can kind of dab that glue, make sure you get it out to the edge, wipe your finger off, and get that nice and aligned. Okay, no one's going to see the bottom of this, so if you goof up a little bit, it's okay, but do your best. Get that nice and centered, and press and hold. Okay, so now we're going to put glue on the remaining 5 tabs, and we're going to close this up. Again, don't be too concerned if this piece doesn't fit on perfectly. It's going to mostly be hidden, but you still want to try to get it as accurate as you can, obviously. Spreading that glue out to the very edge. Wipe your finger off. That may help, to flare these tabs up a little bit so that as you bring this down, now when we bring this down, try to line up this side first with this side. Just get that nice and centered, and then the rest of it will magically fall into place. If you need to sort of nudge some of these in a little bit, you can feel free to do that. For the most part, it should wind up being exactly where you need it. Then you can flip it over and press down from the inside. Help the rest of that tab hold to that little cap. And there we go. And now this little piece here, this is just to kind of reinforce it. So go ahead and just put some glue on the tabs here, and you can throw a little bit in the center as well. And just glue that down. And again, it's just going to make it more sturdy. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this little lip on this piece here, and that is also going to make this nice and sturdy, because right now there's kind of nothing holding it from jostling around like this. This will keep it nice and sturdy so that we can put our panels on more accurately. So just like we did with the bottom, we're going to take this piece and we're going to anchor it to one of these sides here, just to make the rest of the process easier for us. So go ahead and put some glue on one of these tabs, doesn't matter which one. Spread that glue out to the edge. And grab this piece. These little tabs, I just have them pointing up. You can fold them over or keep them in, it doesn't matter. And get that nice and centered on this tab with the glue on it. Make sure you get it nice and lined up right to the very edge. Sorry, I had a little nose itch there. Okay, there we go. And if it helps, you can kind of lift it up and press like this to get that nice and joined. All right, so it's nice and anchored. And now we'll close it up by putting glue on the remaining tabs. Okay, and just make sure that because there's 5 sides here, you can go a little bit heavier on the glue so it doesn't dry out on you as quick. Spread that glue out to the very edges here. And I can already tell, just based on how it feels, that it's already kind of drying up on me. And I may need to go in and kind of clean it up. Okay, so what we want to do here is we're going to take this side and make sure we get that lined up first. And it might need to kind of wobble this thing around a little bit to get it accurately lined up. And you can already tell that that glue is already drying up on me. And this is going to be, I did not put enough glue on this, on any of these. And even though I told you, let's make sure we add a little extra glue to this, and I just did not. So I have to reapply. And now this time, since there's already a layer of glue on there, I probably don't need to do as much as I should have the first time, but I'm still gonna go a little bit heavier. And I'm gonna spread that glue out. It should feel wet to the touch when you're spreading it out, because as we thin it out, you're getting more air to it, and it's making contact with more of that paper surface area. Okay, so again, focusing on the side opposite of the side that it is already hinged at for our first point of contact here, making sure we get that lined up first, because the rest of it will just kind of naturally fall into place. And I would just use 2 fingers like this, almost like you're making a pie crust, to get this all glued together. And you can see now, this time around, it's really sticking nicely. I had enough glue, and you know what? I may need to go in and even fix this side with my little painting method to get that to stick. We'll see here in a second. So needless to say, do not get down on yourself if you get around to getting this glue in place and you've got sections that aren't sticking. I mean, you're basically fighting against time and science. There we go. Okay, but that's looking sharp. I think I finally got it. And take a look around, make sure everything's making good contact. If it's not, grab a piece of scrap paper like this. I always just cut these into little squares after I cut anything out and I have a little excess, and just paint and just stick the tip of this with the glue on it into these little areas where maybe this piece is not making good contact. Paint a little extra glue on the underside of that piece and just press it down and hold it, just to get it in there and make it sit nice and flush if you've got any little areas that maybe are sticking up a little bit. A little bit of glue goes a long way, especially when you're kind of fixing things along the way here. And that looks great. Okay, perfect. All right, now we can fold these down. We'll come back to these in a minute. We'll fold these down and flip it over. It's time to put some panels on. Okay, and these are the 6 panels that we're going to need. Now obviously I have mine in a specific pattern, and it's up to you on which pattern you want to use. Okay, and They don't really go in any specific order. I just have, based on my patterns here, a certain way that I want them to go on. But again, if your pattern isn't like this, or if you want them in a certain order, you can put them in a certain order, but it is not required. Okay, so we're on to the panels now. And I think the best way to do this is going to be to start at the top, get that nice and lined up, and then just kind of work your way down to the bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do, and I think what we're going to do is get our glue on the entire section, the entire panel, I should say, and just get it all done in one fell swoop here. We'll try it and see how that works. So we'll need a little bit of glue at the top and bottom, and then you can put a little line along the very edge. I don't really think we need to put, and this glue is just drying out so quick right now, so just have to adapt and work with what I have here. So again, get that nice and flush with the top, make sure it is centered, and use your fingers there to kind of help you make sure that it is nice and flush. Hold that in place, and then while you're holding it, take this and just bring it all the way down to the bottom and kind of hold it at both of these points to make sure it's making good contact with the base structure here. Okay, and that looks great up at the top as well as the bottom. And just take your time with this. Make sure everything sits nice and flat. And that looks great. And then again, we're going to take, and there's going to be a little trim piece going around the top here, so we can cover up any little imperfections that we may have if we need to. Okay, so moving on to the next segment here. So I'm going to take and apply glue again just to the top. I'm going to go a little bit thicker because I've been noticing that it's been drying out really quick today. I don't know if it has something to do with the humidity or the lack of humidity. Could be. I still have plans to do a video on that. And spread that glue all the way out to the very edge on both sides. Get that nice and centered on the structure there, nice and flush with the top. Press and hold that down, and then just work it down nice and flush to the bottom. There we go. And continue to hold that at the bottom as well as the top. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, and that's essentially what we want it to look like. Okay, moving on to the next one here. And a little bit down the side. Spread that glue out all the way to the very edge on the top and the bottom. And again, make sure you get it nice and centered on the main structure, nice and flush at the top. Press that down, and then you can actually flip this over and get the rest of it pressed down into place. Again, maintain some pressure here and here. The rest of it should be kind of gripping on its own just because of the curve there. Okay. Don't rush this part. Take your time. There we go. Okay, so just a couple more to go here. There we go, cool. Okay, moving on to the next section. Once you get the hang of it, it'll start to kind of flow, and we'll go from being super conscious about what we're doing and getting into almost just kind of a flow. Like for those of you that have ever seen those videos of people at work where they do these repetitive tasks over and over and over again to the point where they almost look like sorcerers or some kind of magician in how they do their work. Well, that's what we're becoming here, kind of paper sorcerers. Okay, so fold that down and bring that down like this and press that down against the bottom section there and maintain the pressure there. Now you can absolutely just kind of go in order. I'm just doing it this way because there's the patterns on this paper. I want them in a certain, certain pattern, I guess. A certain sequence, I guess, is another word for it. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to go here. Do that one there, and that just leaves one more after this one. And we got one more little section, a couple little things that we still need to do to this piece to finish it off, and then we can work on the actual chick. Okay, so getting my glue out to the very edges, top and bottom. Let me make sure I got this in the right. Yep. Okay, so get that lined up, nice and centered, nice and flush with the top. If you need to kind of adjust it a little bit, now's the time, while it's still kind of tacky. Okay, and then just take it and press it into place, hold there. There we go. And I'm going to hold both the bottom and the top while that sets. Beautiful. And a nice seam here. Everything is coming together very well. Okay, beautiful. And the last one. So how is yours coming along? Hopefully just as good, if not better than mine. We're getting close here. I think this is going to make a really cute little piece for a child in your family. Perfect for Easter, especially considering that we may in fact, well, many of you will probably be able to actually see your family this year because everyone's getting their vaccines, and I think it's safe to say that things are pretty much returning to normal here for the most part anyway. Okay, so again, getting that nice and lined up, nice and flush with the top. Press that down, and then take it and just bring it all the way to the bottom. There we go. And just hold that at these 2 points, and there we go. Okay, almost there. Beautiful. All right, check the top parts there, make sure everything looks good. Mine looks great. Okay, so now, before we put the little lip on, we have this little piece here, and similar to the one on the other base, oh, look at that. I didn't wait long enough for that one, and it came off. So if that happens to you, see this guy right here? Bad little piece of paper. Grab a scrap piece of paper, throw a little glue right on the tip there, and just paint that glue on the back side of this guy. And just fold that and actually just press it into place and hold it. Give that a few seconds to set. But yeah, hopefully many of you are already getting your vaccines, and I thought long and hard about whether or not I even want to talk about this in the videos, but I think it'll be kind of cool for people, you know, 2, 3, 4 years from now that are watching this, to be reminded of, you know, the tough times that we all went through. Because it was strange times, that's for sure. So in a sense, this project is almost a metaphor for new life for everybody. Okay, so we're going to start off with this trim piece, the one that has the little tabs on it. And just like we did before, we're going to start by gluing the center one down first. I want to make sure that we get that nice and flush with the top here. Again, make sure you grab the one with the tabs on it. So I'm going to apply my glue to the center of this first. Okay. And I'm just using my table here to make it easier since this is kind of a flimsy piece. And pick a side, any side, doesn't matter. Use the little folds there to kind of help guide you. Get that nice and flush with the top. And press and hold that into place for just a moment. And while you're holding that in place, you can peel one section back and get your glue on the next section here. And throw a little bit of glue on that tab there. You can fold this over, press it down, again making sure that it's nice and flush with the top, and then you can push this little tab into place as well. Just like that. That looks perfect. And last but not least, this little segment here, get that glued into place. And a little bit of glue on the tab, fold her over, and press that down into place. Okay, so 3 sections down. We got one more to go here. We're going to cap it off with this piece here, and that looks great. Almost looks like, well, this part, especially with the inking, almost looks like when you make a soft-boiled egg and it's kind of dripping and oozing that yummy yolk. But we got a live chick inside this thing, so it's not yolk. But boy, that sounds good right now. Okay, so I'm putting glue on the center of these 3 segments. And again, make sure you find the center of these 3 segments to put this down on. And use those folds to guide you. Make sure again that it's nice and flush with the top of this. And press that down into place. Use your fingers to kind of feel and make sure that it is flush. Obviously you want to use your eyes too, but your fingers also will help. And then while you're holding that down, you can peel back one of these sections and apply your glue. Get a little bit of that glue out around the ball of the little scallop there. And make sure you get some glue out to the very edge of this. And then fold that over. Again, making sure it's flush. And press that down on top of that tab from the previous piece. And here we go. And that just leaves one more little section here. Apply our glue, get this done. And then we can actually anchor this and glue this down to our base so that once we get to the end, it'll all be ready for our little lid, which is the little chick. Okay, so let's fold that down again, making sure it's nice and flush. Pop it right on top of the tab from the previous segment. And there we have it. Okay, beautiful. Looks great. Okay, so one more little thing for this, and that's the little lip. And the lip is made up of these 2 pieces. You'll notice that there's a little triangular tab on one side of each of these. We're going to take and put glue on this triangular tab. And join it with the previous or the other piece. Make it all one continuous piece. And you can take it and fold it at that seam where we just joined the 2 and press down there, and also just lay the other one on top of the other one. And they should sit right on top of each other perfectly, which means that you did a good job getting everything aligned. And to close this up now, we'll take and put some glue on this little triangular tab. Wipe that off. You can lay this down flat, take the other end, and just press that right into place. There we go. Should sit completely flat. And then we can take it and fold it over onto that tab, or onto that seam, and press down. And there we go. So here's what we have, and here's what we're doing with this. This is going to get glued to these tabs here, so that when we put the Chic on, this is the prototype, the Chic's going to go right over that little lip so that it doesn't just fall off. Okay, now to anchor this, we're simply going to take some glue and put the glue on each one of these 6 tabs, one at a time. I would just do a nice thin line of glue, you don't need a ton, and take it and just fold it over to the inside of this section. So once you bring this up vertically, you'll know. Now, you want to make sure it's centered. Mine was not centered there. Make sure you have it nice and centered on that segment, and press and hold that down. Take a look at it again. That looks good. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the opposite side. That's going to help us get everything nice and aligned. And I'm going to take and bring this down, throw a little bit of glue on this tab, and fold this up against the inside of this lip. Pardon my head here for a second. I just want to make sure that I've got it nice and centered. This little lip should sit flush on this surface here, so make sure you've got it all the way down on top of that surface, and press that into place. And that looks perfect. Okay, so now we just need to go to the other 4 tabs and get those glued onto the inside of our little lip. And again, just make sure that this is nice and flush up against the surface. There we go. And we're going to go opposite of the side that we just did. So right here. And do this one. Fold that up. And the last 2. So getting that first one centered is pretty key to making sure that everything else ends up in the right place. Okay, so you can see I've got this nice and flush up against the surface, that tab going up against the back side of the lip. And last one. Okay, fold that up. I'm kind of pushing down on this as I press these together, just to make sure it is in fact down against the surface and not just like floating above it. And there we have it. Okay, so there's your container for your little gift. And now obviously we're going to take this and we're going to glue this to this guy here, right at the bottom. So we can do that now actually. And let's put glue on this segment here, this section, because this is exactly where the glue needs to go. I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the glue here because I really want it to bond, and we're not in a hurry, so we can really let this set for a little while we actually work on the rest of our little Chic. I'll spread that glue out so that it looks nice and flush and seamless all the way around. And just pop that into place. Doesn't really matter unless you have a certain pattern paper that you want facing a certain direction. It really shouldn't matter where you put this. But make sure you get it on there, nice and centered. And then you can flip it over and push down from the inside. Give it a little added pressure. And there we go. Okay. And let's move on to the Chic, the last leg of our assembly. Okay, so our base is put together, and in between takes here, I hot glued my bling on a roll to the base here. You can see I put it right at the very top of this section, in the center here, and at the bottom of this section. And you can see how that bling really makes it stand out. So moving on to our actual chick here, you can see we've got these two sections already pre-folded. And just like we did with the base, we're simply going to take and connect the tabs to the neighboring sections like so. And we'll begin, let's just start down here. It's already joined for us, so we don't have to worry too much about making sure that we have it lined up accurately at the bottom since it's already done. And I think, pretty confident that we could probably do more than one tab at a time, but I'm going to start off by just doing one tab. And there is this little tiny tab down here, but we're going to ignore that one since it's going to be kind of difficult to get your finger in there, or actually even apply glue to it. Okay, so working on the next section of tabs here. And I'm just going to do a couple at a time here. I'll just pat that, dab that glue down a little bit, and just make sure that you're following the natural curve of the shape here, that you get everything nice and lined up. And there we go. Just moving our way up, very simple. And this piece isn't as wide, so it's a lot easier to get your fingers around there. Okay, and just doing one tab here. I think as my confidence grows getting this together, I'll be happy to just feel a little more confident doing more tabs all at once. So up to the final tab here. Now there is one more tab all the way at the top, but we're going to leave that for last. That is the little cap that we're going to put on there to close it all off. Okay, so just focus on making sure that everything is nice and lined up along that curve there. And there you have it. Okay, so there were times there where I did one tab at a time, then like two, then back to one. This time, I'm going to just try to do all of them all at once here, one at a time, but I'm going to put glue on all the tabs. And let's see how that works out. Pretty confident it'll go smoothly. Just work that glue out to the very edge of each tab. And start working your way up. Again, you notice how I kind of dabbed that glue to thin it out and make it a little tacky. And that is going to make it a lot easier for the assembly. You can just kind of cruise on through, and you see how quickly I was able to go through all of those tabs. It was not difficult at all, and everything stuck together nicely. Now I'm going to put this off to the side for a second and let it set, and we'll work on the other half, and we'll do the same thing here. So again, you can skip that tiny little tab down there. It's not going to make a huge difference. And get your glue on all these tabs. Again, if you're more comfortable doing one at a time, by all means, feel free. There's no wrong or right way to do it. But get that glue tacky. Start at the bottom there. Make sure that you're kind of bending the other one so that it falls in line with this shape. And switch up your hand positions to whatever feels the most natural and comfortable. And there you go. Again, less is more when it comes to the glue. So if you're spending more than a few seconds joining these tabs together, that's telling me that you're using way too much glue, because you got a lot more that will need to absorb, and it's going to take a lot longer for it to get tacky and really hold that other sheet of, or other section of paper. All right, so moving on here to the next one. And essentially the last one on this section. And then we're actually going to put this off to the side and let the glue set before we join these two sections together. And while they're setting, I'm going to show you a quick little tip on how to ink the little panels that need to go on this. I'll show you here in just a second, just making sure that all these tabs are nice and aligned. Again, make sure you're following that natural curve there. And there we have it. Okay, so that's that. And again, I'm going to just let this chill for a minute. And what I wanted to talk about is the panels that are ultimately going to go on top of this. You'll notice that I did some inking on this, and we have these little feather pieces on here that eventually we're going to flare out and kind of train just to kind of give this a little bit of dimension, like so. But you'll notice that I also added a little bit of inking to that. Well, quick little tip so that you don't make a huge mess, and I left one uninked. Take a scrap piece of paper and just tuck it underneath there, and you can kind of flare it out a little bit. Grab your ink, get a good amount on there, and go ahead and just ink away. And having that little sheet underneath there prevents you from hitting the surface of this and keeping it nice and clean. Okay, otherwise, I mean, you could risk it and just go like this, just get it out of the way. I guess that works too, but I'd feel a lot more confident having this little piece just kind of hanging out underneath here, just to make sure. A little security blanket so that I don't blemish the rest of the piece and get ink in places where I don't want it. Okay, so inking is obviously optional, but you can see here how nice of an effect that creates. So definitely, if you have the time, add some ink to your projects. It really makes them stand out. And you can put a little bit of yourself into the project by choosing your, not only your paper colors, but adding your ink. Okay, and here again is another little method where you can kind of bend the bottom part out of the way a little bit so that as you're stroking down, you're not hitting the surface below this. Okay, that's a cool little tip. Again, you can pop that right in there, fold this out just a tad, and hit it with your ink. And there we go. Okay, all right, so what we're going to do next is join these two sections together and then join these two sections together. So I want to begin by anchoring this down at the bottom first. So go ahead and get your glue on this bottom tab first. We're going to just do this one tab at a time right now because we want to make sure that we get this perfectly aligned right there at the bottom. And hold that in place. Okay. And then we're going to work our way up, and I think it may be a good idea to just do a couple tabs at a time here, just to get our feet wet with this. Might be easier because it's a little bit of a tighter space to work in. So let's get those two tabs, and actually, you know what? I didn't dab those and tack them up like I have been. So I'm going to go back and just press that into place. Again, making sure that you're aligning it nicely, following that curve. There we go. And move that out of the way. And because we have to kind of get in there, I'm going to put glue on the remaining 4 tabs. You can see them there. Let's get our glue on those 4 tabs, and let's just finish this side up. Okay. And tack them up. Make sure you get that glue out to the very edges. Get your fingers nice and clean. And push that tab up against the inside of the neighboring piece here. And it may help to move these top tabs out of the way so that you can slide your finger inside here I'm going to work from the bottom for this one, but as I get closer to the top, it'll certainly help to be able to get my finger in there. Maybe it won't even be necessary. We'll see. Okay, get that aligned, and it actually is going to be helpful to have that opening at the top just for that last tab. And press that into place, and there we go. So now we've got that joined together, and that just leaves this section here. And just like we did the first time, I'm going to start by getting this part, the bottom, glued down first. And this is going to go together very nicely for us. There we go. Okay, so just make sure that that is nice and aligned and nice and flush here, right in this, on that plane there. Okay, now to get your glue on the rest of these tabs, let's work from the inside, just so that we don't make a huge mess. So pull the tabs towards you, away from where they're ultimately going to go, so it's a lot easier to apply your glue to these tabs. And I'm going to just do a few at a time here. I'm going to do like 2 or 3. And go ahead and kind of dab them a little bit, tack up that glue, and then just push those over and line them up. But I'm going to do it from this side so I can actually see where the edge of this surface is relative to this surface. I'm going to make sure that everything is nicely aligned. And there you have it. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's go back inside now. And that just leaves 3 more tabs. The top 3 there, you can see them, 1, 2, 3. Let's get our glue on these 3 tabs. And just hitting them with my finger to tack it up, spread it nice and thin. And then I'm going to take those tabs and glue them to the back side of this surface here. So this is the surface with the tabs. This is the surface that we're gluing it to, but I'm just doing it from this side so I can actually see where the 2 seams are joining, just to make sure that I'm doing it accurately. And that looks great. Perfect. Again, we can move these tabs out of the way just to get our finger on that last tab up here to give that one final little squeeze. There we go. Okay, so that is our Chic, and we're going to close this up now. One other thing too here. Take this little piece and we're going to begin by anchoring it to just one of these triangular tabs up here. So just pick one, apply your glue, and spread it out all the way to the bottom of that little triangle. And take this piece here and get that nice and centered right on that tab. Give that a second. You can see what I'm doing there. Just getting it on the one tab, and I'll press that down. Make sure it's got a good hold. And I'll push that out of the way. And now I'm going to take and apply glue to the remaining tabs and close this up. So go ahead and do that. Okay. And it may help to kind of raise these up a little bit. I'm going to take the little lid here now that we've formed, and we're going to close it. You want to focus on getting it aligned with this tab here, the side opposite of the one that's already glued down. So just get that to be nice and lined up. And if you have to kind of nudge some of the walls in, feel free to do that. and press and hold that down for just a moment and let it set. And we can flip it over and push the rest of those tabs down with our fingers, or where's my little handy dowel? I can use my dowel to push those into place as well. Always trying to limit any damage to the project. And sometimes if you stick your hand in things and start pressing, you may end up warping something or doing something weird. We're going to try to avoid that. Okay, so now it is time to put our panels in place. All right, now one thing to keep in mind here is that these three, with all the little feathers that go all the way up and down, those can pretty much go anywhere. Okay, but these three, there's one that has no feathers, but it has a series of little score marks on it, or little markers, and that's to help with the placement of the various facial features. Okay, that's the center. And then to the left, we're going to put this piece. No, we're not. No, we're not. I'm going to put this piece on the left, this piece on the right. This piece right here has three little feathers, and the bottom one is closest to this panel. And then on the right, the bottom one is closest to this panel as well. Okay, so just take a visual look at that. That's how it's going to go down. We're going to start with the main one that doesn't have any of the little feathers on it. And to get this in place, we're going to take, and just like we did the last few times here, we're going to glue just the bottom, add a little line of glue along the side, and then glue this to the top like so. All right, so let's begin with that. Go ahead and get your glue on the very bottom, maybe about a 1/2 inch worth of glue there. And we're going to spread that all the way to the very bottom, then work a little bit of glue up the side. And of course, we need a little bit of glue up at the top. Spread that all the way to the very edge on the bottom and the top. And grab this, get that nice and lined up, nice and centered on the structure, and also flush here at the top. Mine is not exactly flush, so I'm going to fix that real quick. And that looks pretty good. Okay, just make sure it's nice and flush there, and then take and just bring it on up. And we're going to have to fold it at the top and press it down. It's going to be covered up later with our little chick's hair. But the most important thing at this point is just to make sure that it's making good contact all the way up along the sides, and that it's nice and flush and making good contact at the bottom. Okay, so you can see how nice and flush that is there, as well as here. Just fold it up at the top and nice and flush at the base there. Okay, give that a few seconds to set. No need to rush here. This is probably one of the most important parts of this project here that we get right. Okay, and next we're going to do the same thing with this guy. And just make sure you grab the right one with the three little feathers in this orientation. Let me pull these back so you can actually see them a little bit more clear. There we go. And that one's going to go here, and then this one's going to go here. And the rest of the other three don't really matter. Okay, so moving on to the next one here. Just like we did the first one, I'm going to start off with just a little bit of glue here on the bottom. And a little line going up. Try not to get any glue on the little feather cutouts. We don't want those to get glued to the actual structure because we want to flare them out. Okay, so just making sure that I'm getting the right one in the right spot. This one's going here. So let's get that nice and lined up. There we go. Nice and centered, nice and flush here. Press that down. And then just take your thumbs maybe and just pull that all the way up, and then just fold that down on the top and press and hold that in place. Make sure everything's making good contact along the sides here. Okay, and you can see how these two seams are pretty much touching all the way up. There's maybe a little gap here, but not a big deal. And then while we're here, we can just kind of pinch these a little bit, flare them out, and there we have it. Looking good. Just making sure everything is sitting flat. All right, on to the last one here for this section. Let's get our glue, same spot. Okay, a little bit up the side, a little bit up this side, and of course right at the tip. Spread that out, nice and thin, and get that lined up, nice and centered, nice and flush. Make sure it's all there, and just run your fingers right up to the top and fold that down. Look at that. And while we're holding that, can flare these little, ruffle the feathers a little bit. Get a little feisty with our little chick here. There we go. Okay. Now, while you're putting this up, you'll probably notice that there are little markers there, and that's for a little embellishment that we're going to put on there when we're done. Okay, so that just leaves 3 more. And again, these it doesn't really matter where you put these. These are all the same. And there's no specific rhyme or reason to it. Just those 3 that needed to go in a specific order. So, but the process is going to be exactly the same. Nice amount at the bottom, nice amount at the top. Spread that all the way out to the very edge, like so. And start at the wide end. Nice and centered. There we go. Nice and flush. Press that down. You can flip it and run your fingers along both sides. And we need to adjust that a tiny bit. There we go. And press that nice and flat at the top. Just make sure it's getting a good hold all the way up and down here. Oh, look at that, peeled off. You know why? It's because I didn't do it fast enough. So we'll go back and just clean it up real quick. Do it again. It happens. No need to panic. You can always go back in and clean stuff up. Nothing really ripped. Nothing bad happened. And there we go. Try to keep it nice and tight as you're pulling it up, especially right here at this seam. Okay, and just hold that down until it fully sets. Okay, looking good, Mr. Chicky. Or Miss Chicky. Okay, so now I'm going to go over here to this guy. Same thing. Okay, a little bit up the side, down the other side, and then up here at the tip. Spread that out nice and thin. Okay. And pop that in place, nice and centered, nice and flush. There we go. And just wrap that right onto the surface there and press down right at the top. Okay, looking good. And that just leaves one more little panel. And then we can start putting the finishing touches on our chick so we can call it a day. Okay. Oh, and don't forget, while you're here, just kind of ruffle these feathers a little bit. Just peel them out and bend them out. And last one here, while I have it flat, I'm going to peel these out right now so I don't accidentally get some glue on them while we're getting it into place. Okay. So there you go. This will make a great addition to our little turkey and our, do we have a snowman? Do we have a snowman? I don't even remember now. We got a turkey, we got a witch, we got a scarecrow. It's kind of in the same style, same sort of collection, I guess you could call it. All right, so nice and flush here with the bottom. Make sure you give that a good press so that it sticks. And just wrap it right up. And press that down at the top. So you see how all these little triangles just kind of meet right at the center, at the top there. And that is ideal. Looking good. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. All right, cool. All right, so we can at this point focus on the front of our little chick here. And we've got some eyebrows, we've got some eyeballs. Now, we're using googly eyes for this, which I highly recommend. And we're gonna glue, we'll just get this set here. I'm gonna glue my googly eyes. I was actually just at Hobby Lobby today, and I was at Joann the other day. They have tons of these, so we'll probably end up using these in the future. So get your hands on a nice collection of googly eyes. And why is it not sticking? Oh, it's because it's not paper on the back there. It's almost like it is a plastic actually. So we're gonna wanna put some glue on that and let it chill for a minute to let it set. We'll do the same thing on the other one. Let's get that glued into place on the little holder here. Get it nice and centered. And we'll include the dimensions as far as the size goes on the googly eyes in the PDF. This looks like it's about just over a half inch as far as the width goes. So let those set. But we can get our eyebrows in place here. You'll notice that there's a set of little markers here, and the very bottom are where the little tips are going to go. Okay, so here's a great opportunity, if you have one, to use a little pick-me-up tool. And I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of glue out of my bottle and just put some little dots on this. Just a very, very, very small amount of glue is all that's necessary for this piece. It's so tiny, it doesn't really need a lot. Okay, so we'll get that into place using those little markers there. And that will help keep everything nice and symmetrical, which is why we add the little markers for you. We don't want your chick looking like it's got some weird attitude going on, or we don't want it to look scary or upset or any emotion. We just want it to be nice and happy. Okay, so my pick-me-up tool's not really working too well right now. That's okay. I'm going to use my other pick-me-up tool, my fingers. And there we go, popping that right into place. Okay, while the eyes are still setting, we've got some nice rosy little cheeks here. And those are going to go right here, just below these markers. There's some markers for the actual eyes. And just below that are the markers for the little cheeks. And the cheeks are going to go on just like that, kind of at an angle. So let me grab, what's going on with this thing? Maybe I need some new tacky to come out there. Things are just acting weird today. The glue's acting weird. It happens though. Today's been kind of a weird day. What are you going to do? Okay. And that guy's going to go right here. Use those little markers. You're basically just kind of fitting this right into the center around the little markers there. And we got one more. Nice rosy cheeks. Okay. And that one's going to go right here. There we go. Beautiful. And I'll wait for the eyes. I'll do those in just a second here. Okay, so this is the main part of the beak here. This tab, we're going to actually put some glue on, but this is going to come down, and you want to fold this where you've got a little fold line going down the center of the smaller triangular area, because the beak's going to be kind of open. It's going to be sticking out a little bit. Okay, so you can see that. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this back. We're going to take this piece and glue it on top of this piece. So you end up with kind of a little open mouth like that. Okay, so let's put some glue on this section here. Okay, and then you can take this other triangle and just fold it over and glue that down and hold it until it fully sets. And like I said, you're going to end up with something like that. And the beak is going to kind of sit at a little bit of an angle. And where's the marker for that? Actually, we don't really have a marker for that, but that's going to go, once we get the eyes in place, we'll actually put this on. I don't want to put this on right now because I'm afraid that while we're moving things around that it might get jostled and knocked off. But let's get the eyeballs in place here. Okay, and you want the little eyelashes to be on the bottom. One's going to go out to the right, the other one's going to go out to the left. And you can put glue on this whole thing. And maybe just a little drop there on the actual eyelash. And use the little marker there. There's a small little marker for the tip of the eyelash. I keep wanting to say eyelash, Billy. And that's going to go right there. And the other one, the eyelash, is going to go over to the left. Okay. And there we go. Okay. All right, so we got the beak ready to go. We do need to put a little bow around our little chick, but first we're going to put this around, this little band, and you'll notice at the bottom of each of these panels are a series of score marks. This band is going to go right here just above the little score mark. So that is just to help you keep it all lined up nicely so that you know exactly where it needs to go, because it is a certain size and it will only work at that height. Okay, so I put glue on the center section. We're going to glue that down first, just like we've done many times throughout this project. And just above that little score mark, you want to get that right there and glue that down. And then while we're holding that down, you can fold this back and put glue on this section here. And then make sure you put a little bit on that little tab there at the end. And I'm just going to dab that a bit. Again, use the little markers there just to make sure you get that nice and aligned and nice and level all the way around. And then press that little tab down too, so we keep that all nice and aligned. Then we can move on over here to this section. Now again, make sure that you're using the little band with the tab first, because the other half of this is going to end up sitting on top of that tab. Okay, line that up with the little score mark, press it down, push that little tab down. Okay, there we go. So that's what that looks like. And now we'll take the other half of this band, starting in the center, throw a little bit of glue on there. Okay. And we're going to go back to the center of the back. And again, using the little markers there, get that in place, just above the marker. There we go. Press that down. And we'll go over here, pull this back, apply glue to this section all the way to the very edge, and fold that down, and then it should rest right on top of the previous, or the tab from the previous section. There we go. And then finally, the last section here. Throw a little glue on there, just like that, and bring that all the way over. Line that up nicely with the previous section right on top of that tab. And there we go. So the band is in place. Okay, now let me show you how to make this little bow. So what we're going to do, I'm going to grab a dowel, and I'm going to take and just kind of curl and make this round so that when we actually build the bow, we can take this and glue that down right there. Okay, so what we're going to do, you'll notice that there's a little square here. Throw a little bit of glue on the square and take it and bring it over to the little square inside of the two loops and glue that right down to the center there. Should be within the little score marks. Okay. And hold that in place for a moment. There's going to be a little bit of resistance there. Perfect. And then take the other square, throw a little glue on that, and bring that over, and hold that down. There we go. If you want to, you can use a little dowel just to add some more direct pressure without bending or warping anything else. There we go. Okay, now this little piece here, what we're going to do is we're going to pop this right on here and center it, and then just take it and fold one end and then fold the other end back, and we'll put just a little touch of glue on one of these and fold it over on top of the other half to close it up, and just hold that and squeeze it for a few seconds to make sure that it gets a good hold. Okay, so you'll notice that the bow is a little bit taller on this half and a little bit shorter relative to the center. You'll notice that it's kind of short here and tall here. The tall part's going to be up at the top, and this is, so you want it not this way, but this way. Okay, and we're going to actually glue this down right to the center of the front. Okay, so just get some glue on the back of this. Go a little bit heavier on this as far as the glue goes. And try to get that nice and centered. Use the eyeballs to help kind of figure out where that center part is. So if it helps, just kind of put something in the center between the eyes and just try to line that up nicely there. There we go. Be patient while that sets. Again, we're going to put the beak on last. And all we really have left is the wings and the tail and the hair. Okay, so as far as wings go, we got two layers here. Okay, this one's going to go on this side, this one's going to go on that side. And we want to take and just kind of train the wings so that they're not flat. Just going to kind of curl them a little bit, like so. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Okay, try to keep it as consistent as you can. And we'll do the same thing to this one. Okay, and you can pull these little ruffles out. Just like that. Pull those out. Okay, and this one's going to go on this, piece here. And you kind of want them, you want to get it centered. So right here, they're going to be pretty much flush. And you want to kind of align it so that you've got a little bit of a border here and a little bit of a border here. And you only really need to put glue on the very base of this. I wouldn't go any higher than right about there. And get that into place. Again, making sure that you got kind of an even border on both sides. And then you can actually take this and flare it out a little bit just to create some separation between the two layers, just to make it look more full. Okay, so let's let that set for a second. We'll do the other one real quick. Just a bit of glue there, should hold it. And get that lined up. Nice even border on both sides. Give that a squeeze. There we go. Okay. So next we're going to get this glued down, and we want the wings to be right about here. Okay, so if you're looking at it from this angle, this bottom section here, you kind of want it to stay within this segment. We want it almost to the very bottom here. Not quite. Give it just like a hair of distance. Okay, and we're going to glue that right about there. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And all we really need to do is just put a little bit of glue in this section here. And that should be enough. And I'll make sure that I'm keeping it consistent. And it's probably right about there, I'd say. That looks good. And look at from the front, that looks nice. Just press that into place. And we've got 2 layers there, so be patient. It's a little bit heavier than usual. There we go. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So depending on how you have it over there, just try to keep it symmetrical on the other side. And again, right about there, just make sure that, take a look at it from the front, make sure that you adjust it so that it's kind of going at the same angle on both sides. There we go. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And just press that into place, give that a few seconds. Okay. And you can add a cute little tail feather. So that looks adorable. All right, so onto our tail feather here. We've got 2 layers. I'm going to take and curl this down. So this is the side that I inked, curling it down. Same with this one. I'm going to curl that one down. And we're going to glue this to the top of this so that it's flush at the bottom. And we want to try to create some separation between these two. But in the meantime, throw a little bit of glue right at the very bottom of this one. Spread that glue out. Line it up with the bottom of this one. Here we go. Press that in place. Okay. There we go. Just like that. And then, right on the back, we're going to take this and glue this right here in the center, like so, so that the tail is kind of sticking out like that. Let's grab your glue, just a nice thin line. Not thin, well, yeah, kind of thin. Just about, what is that, 1/4 of an inch of glue. And get that nice and centered. That looks pretty centered to me. There we go. And press that into place. Okay, so we've got our wings, we've got our tail feather. Let's add our hair. Okay, so our last step here is to put the hair on. And we've got two pieces here. What we're going to do is we're going to glue this section together, but not all the way up, okay? So we're just going to put glue on just the very base of this section that has the 5 little feathers on it, just at the base, not any further up. Okay, so let's just connect it there. Let's pretend that we're gluing the whole thing together so that we get it nice and aligned correctly, but we're just gluing it right at that little section there, because what we're going to do eventually is take this, glue it to the top of the chick's head, but we want to be able to flare these out in various directions to make it look more full. Okay, so I actually made a boo-boo on this, but that's okay. We're going to put our glue on this little spot up here, this little bald spot. And I'm just going to dab that a little bit. You can see that I made a mistake there. So it's not really absorbing into the paper like it normally would, but that's okay. And what we want to do is we want to take this part with these 2 little points here. Those are going to be facing forward. So let's pop that right on top. Try to get that nice and centered. And again, use the eyes to help you with the centering, and press that down into place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on these individual little feathers and just kind of wrap them down and onto the surface of our little chick's head. Okay, so you can see little remnants from where I goofed up, but I'm just going to cover that up with the new ones, and that's okay. Stuff happens sometimes. You just got to go with the flow. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start off by just putting glue on these individual little feathers, and we'll just do a few at a time. You don't need to put glue on the entire thing, just towards the tip is probably enough. And I'm going to take my finger and spread that nice and thin. Okay. And go ahead and just take it. If you have some excess glue, wipe it off before it's too late. Just take it and press it flat down up against your chick's head and hold that there and let it set. Okay. Just like that. And I might have put glue on a few too many to handle with my 2 hands, so I'll just go and do what I can with the fingers that I have, because I'm not an octopus. Sometimes I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm not an octopus, despite what you guys may think. Definitely not. Okay. So that's essentially what we want it to look like, nice and flush and flat up against the surface. And then we can continue on. And I'm just going to work on one side at a time here, because I think I bit off more than I could chew that first time. And spread that glue out to the tip, make it nice and thin, and wipe off any excess, and just lay that nice and flat up against the surface, and just press and hold until it gets a nice hold, just like that. Okay, and we're just going to work our way around, taking care to make sure we get all of these little strands nice and flush up against the surface. And again, just doing like 4 at a time here, just so we don't bite off more than we can chew. And just press that down, and hold that down. So you can see 1/2 of it is pretty much in place now. Just be patient. There's a little bit of resistance there, so we don't want to let go too early, because then it's just going to go flying all over the place. So there we go. 1/2 of it is pretty much done, nice and flush. And then we'll go over to the other side and apply glue to, like I said, maybe 3 or 4 of the little feathers there. There's probably a more technical biological term for this part of the chick, but I've never had a chick, never raised chicks, so I'm not really sure what it's actually called. That's okay. All right, and I've got 4 left. We'll flip those over, get our glue on the 4 little remaining feathers, get those glued down, and then we can kind of style the rest of the hair here in just a second. So just press that down, hold it down. We got 4 left, so there we go. Sitting nice and flush. And then while we're holding those down, you can take like a thinner dowel and take the remaining ones here and just kind of train them out like that. And maybe you can have one that kind of curls over even more and one that curls over a little less, just to make it look a little more full. Okay. And that's just the basic idea here, to make our chick look cool. Just spread those out, curl them around. You can definitely just kind of separate this a little bit more. And there we have it. Okay, so that's what it should look like. They're really cute. And then to finish it off, we're going to put a little bit of glue on just this little triangle here, the triangular part. So again, this long part, that's the top of the beak. The smaller part, that's the mouth that's opened up. And we're just going to put glue on just this little triangle here. That's the only part that's going to be glued to the actual structure. Okay, and we're going to put it obviously centered. And the tip of this, the top of the beak, is going to be slightly above and just below, above the little rosy cheeks, and just above, barely above the little eyelashes there. Make sure you get that centered. And if it helps, take either a little dowel or something that you can stick in there to press down against that little triangle that we just put our glue on. It's going to be kind of hard to get your finger in there, so use a different tool. And there we have it. Her beak's a little crooked. I didn't get enough glue on there. Go a little bit heavier on the glue this time. I just want to make sure that I get it centered. So however you got to do it to help you with the centering. Again, just slightly above where the eyelashes start. Make sure it's centered. I want it to look nice and symmetrical. And there we go. There she is. That's it, guys. Now, obviously, I'm going to dress this up with, well, we want to put, once this dries, I'm just going to use the little marker to put the little holes that they have in their little beak. I'll draw those in with a little marker, but there is your final result, and that is adorable. Beautiful. Look how that came out. Lovely. That's it, guys. So this was definitely the most involved of the 3 new projects, but as I say, Rome wasn't, well, not as I say, but as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. And where else are you going to find something like this? Perfect for some treats. I'm going to fill this up, probably with some peeps, maybe a chocolate egg, we'll see. But that's it. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please take a moment to visit our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. And while you're there, hit the little bell so you get notifications anytime we release a new product, whether it be free or paid. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in the little URL here at the bottom. It'll take you right there. So happy Easter, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.